Sevenwebheads. The filming of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 starts next month, and we should probably expect a short teaser trailer this summer at Comic-Con, and we're probably getting a few set photos by the end of February, and honestly I can't wait to analyze them with you guys together. And meanwhile, I wanted to share something I've been working on for the past couple of days. It's my own script for The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and keep in mind this is based on all the official news, what Jamie Foxx revealed himself, also some rumors. So I hope you guys will enjoy it, and let's take a look at it.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2, a script by Sevenwebheads, Part 1. The movie starts with the Oscorp Tower. This will be the first shot, right after the opening credits. We see some unknown shadow figure in the office. This person is going through some kind of top secret stuff and folders in the Oscorp's database. Among all other things, we see a file named Richard Parker. Obviously, Peter's dead. We see his researches, his profile, and the scene ends and goes to a new one. Next scene is a robbery scene. Some thugs decided to rob a bank or store, and it almost works. Right at the end of this robbery, we see one guy getting whipped, another guy later on, and by the time there's only one guy left, we see him running away and getting into the dead end. And boom! Everything turns out red, and it's obviously a Spidey signal, which is attached to Spidey's newly created costume belt, which explains the costume changes that we've been told about by Mark Webb himself. Spidey throws a few jokes here and there, and he webs this last thug. He makes a few pictures, and the next shot is the Daily Bugle's building. Yes, I do believe we'll see Daily Bugle in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and obviously the introduction of J. Jonah Jameson. We see Peter skateboarding and entering the building. The first person he gets to chat with is Betty Brant. He shows her his pictures of Spider-Man taking care of bad guys, and she goes like, "Hey, you should show it to our publisher." And at this point a door, by the way you can see JJ's name tag on this door slams, and you can see this angry middle-aged man screaming and raging at one of the photographers. He goes like, "This is the worst thing I've ever seen. Take your photos back and get out of here." Peter decides to give pictures to Betty and goes like, "Let me know if you like them," and he leaves photos on the desk. Peter gives the pictures to the Betty and goes he just leaves the office. So while JJ is still mad and screaming all over the place. Alright, so the next scene is Peter skateboarding once again, and you can see that he is being spied by some unknown shadow figure. At this point his spider sense goes bizarre, but when he turns his back he sees nobody there. Next scene is the class scene. Gwen Stacy, among all other students, enter the classroom, and you can see Gwen being a little bit worried due to the fact that Peter is a little bit late and it's a very important day since they are doing a major test today. Right, so next shot you can see school's bathroom, and Peter in a Spidey costume climbs through the window. He quickly undresses and runs to the class. While he gets to the classroom door, he sees this lonely, bit depressed looking guy standing nearby. He goes to him and the guy says, I guess I'm not the only one who's late, and they start laughing. Peter goes like, "Are you the new guy? I haven't seen you before." He goes like, "Yep, my name is Harry Osborn." He and Peter have a brief chat and they seem to get along. So the next scene we see Oscorp once again. Max Dillon is very nervous. It's a very important day since today he, among all other researchers, have to present their latest work to the majors. Once the presentation begins, some fellow starts by presenting his latest research and his outstanding results. Everybody is cheering him, and Max Dillon is really mad because he finds out that this guy simply stole his idea. He doesn't know how, but he is very confused. When it's Max Dillon's turn, time to present his work, he's very shy and confused, and he goes like, "I'm sorry, but my research isn't done yet." Everybody starts laughing, and Max simply walks away from the office. Once he reaches his computer, he sees that somebody has already downloaded all of his data and becomes mad and upset. Right, so the next scene, we see Peter and Gwen smiling, chatting, and apparently they're going together to his apartment, to his home. I mean, Aunt May invited Gwen to a dinner together. We see a nice friendly dinner. Three of them chat about Peter's accomplishments at the university, and things seem to go very well. So the next shot, it's night already. Both Gwen and Peter are at Peter's room. Peter accidentally remembers Captain Stacy, Gwen's dead, and once realizing he made her upset, he hugs her, kisses her, and promises her that he will always protect her, and they kiss once again. Next shot, same night. Things go worse for Max. Apparently today is Max Dillon's birthday and nobody, not even his mom, congratulated him. He walks into his room, it's night, he turns on TV and sees a news reporter praising Spider-Man for taking care of thugs once again. You can see a slight drop of admiration in Max's eyes and he smiles a little bit. He goes to bed. Screen goes black, slowly fading. Boom, next scene, we see Peter waking up at night, alone in the room. His spider sense goes bizarre once again. He quickly looks to the window and sees a shadow figure down there in the dark alley, slowly walking from his home down the street. He quickly puts on his Spidey costume and swings through the window in order to pursue this mysterious guy. And that's the part 1. Hope you guys enjoyed, and once this video gets 100 likes I make sure to upload part 2, and trust me, things go very interesting in it. So hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your ideas, your theories, what you think about my script, the part 1, and see you later guys. The skies are dark, streets are empty, and you can see Spidey swinging across the street. He is pursuing the unknown shadow figure, but he doesn't want to get noticed, so he does it very carefully. It seems that the mysterious guy is walking faster every single second. What? Says Peter, looking at one of his web shooters. The thing is going crazy. Red lights on his wrists keep flashing and going bizarre. Damn, I thought I fixed those things after the event at Oscorp Tower. Nevertheless, Peter is continuing his pursuit, slowly and carefully. At some point, the mysterious shadow figure turns down the alley. He disappears from Peter's eyesight, and apparently he went straight to the short street on the right. Peter, while swinging, quickly jumps on the side of the building that is next to the alley and makes a final, huge jump across it. Web shooters do not respond. Peter tries to shoot a web and nothing seems to work. Oh, great! Peter is falling down the street, and with one of his hands he managed to stop the falling. He catches the corner of one of the balcony's fence and crashes into the window, breaking the glass. Oh well, that didn't go so well. He turns his back and sees a man who apparently is dressed in pajamas. He looks shocked and confused. His eyes and mouth are wide open. The guy's name is Max Dillon, and apparently he just woke up from the night's sleep. I'm sorry, says Peter. In a few seconds, Max responds, Are you Spider-Man? Peter bows his head and goes, Listen dude, I'm a bit low on cash right now. Max responds, It's okay man, I'm good at fixing stuff. Wait a second, I'll be back in a minute. Max runs back to his room, grabs one of Spidey's pictures in a wooden frame. He goes back to the balcony and nobody is there anymore. Next shot, Peter is running across the street in a Spidey's costume. An old fellow goes by, sees Spidey running nearby, and he goes like, Oh boy, is it Halloween already? Next shot, we see Peter climbing through the window of his home right into his room. Now, Mark Webb told us that we are going to see a new web shooters in the sequel, and he described them as gnarly. The next few hours, which is made into a few seconds scene, Peter is creating and modifying his new web shooters. Knock knock, Aunt May enters the room and reminds Peter that tomorrow they are going to visit Uncle Ben's grave. Peter pretends that he remembers about it and wishes Aunt May to have a good sleep. Next scene, next shot. morning. We see Peter sleeping in a bed like a baby and his TV is on. The volume is very low and you can see a news reporter. Oscorp is expanding their resources. Tomorrow Oscorp is launching their new electrical station. It's rumored to be a prototype of their latest research. Oscorp is promising that once the station will be in a fully workable state, they will provide the whole Manhattan with a free electricity for everyone. The scientists organization of New York City are very skeptical. They tend to believe that it's just another cheap move from the powerful organization, and that Oscorp is simply trying to recover from all the damages that were done to their building a few months ago. We would like to remind to our viewers that the person responsible for the disaster at Oscorp Tower, Curtis Connors, is now serving his time in one of the most protected prisons in New York City. Meanwhile, it's been announced that the head of the Oscorp, Norman Osborn, a person who's been staying in the shadows for the past few years, despite his health problems, will make an appearance during the event. Other news. Knock knock. Peter, wake up darling, it's time. Peter slowly wakes up, he looks very sleepy, turns off his TV and he tries to get up. He put his leg on the floor right into one of the web shooters, which blows up and sticks Peter's leg right to the floor. Oh boy, how do I get up now? Next shot, next scene. Max Dillon goes to his another day at work. He sits in a subway car, smiling and being all happy. He reaches Oscorp, listening to a funky music and being all hyped. Next shot, we see him during the lunch break trying to convince his partners at work that Spiderman visited him last night. Everybody starts laughing and going like, Max, I think you need a vacation, buddy. Down the hall you see a person in an expensive suit who apparently heard the conversation. Boom! He gets accidentally hit by a young boy who was running right nearby. I'm sorry, sir, says the guy. No worries. Have you seen your dad, Harvey? Yes, sir, but he doesn't feel very well. He's in his office. I'm sorry, I have to run, sir. Class starts in 1 hour. Next shot, next scene, we see a man in a wheelchair. He looks very old and exhausted. He looks into a huge display which shows hundreds of spider species and their DNA structure. Next shot, cemetery scene. Both Peter and Aunt May stand silently for a couple of seconds. The camera then zooms to Peter, who is a little bit confused. He asks Aunt May if there are any possibilities that his parents are still alive. He mentions that he thinks somebody is trying to make a contact with him, somebody he knows. After a few silent seconds, Aunt May turns to him with a teardrop. Peter, I have to tell you something. That's the part 2. Hope you guys enjoy it, and once this video gets 300 likes, I'll make sure to release part 3. It's very unpredictable and I'm sure you guys will like it. And until then, see ya. Aunt May explains Peter that his parents died in a plane crash. She, Uncle Ben and Peter always believed that. She apologizes to Peter and mentions that they didn't actually get to see the bodies. There was no funeral, there was no final farewell. She told him that she believes he's grown enough to know this was kept away from him simply not to give an empty hopes. And finally, she tells him that every kid in his situation would behave the same, pretending that there's something bigger going on, some kind of mystery, but instead, he should simply forget about it. She tells him that she loves him and that Uncle Ben would say the same. They both hug and camera slowly goes into the sky. Next shot, it's a classroom scene. Peter, among all other students, sit in the class. During the lesson, Harry Osborn enters the classroom. He's late, he looks very upset, very exhausted and very depressive. He sits next to Peter and Peter asks him if everything is alright. Harry bows his head, not looking into Peter's eyes. Teacher explains to the students that tomorrow there's this huge event and that they are going to choose 2 best, brightest students to attend it. Teacher mentions that it's the long-awaited launch of the Oscorp power station and two brightest students who are best at physics will be invited. Without any more hesitation, she announces the name, Peter Parker. Peter is a little bit shy, but nevertheless he smiles. She tells him that he can invite one more student, it's up to him. Peter looks to Gwen and they both smile. On the back you can hear Flash Thompson making a joke about Peter being a nerd and that he should have invited him instead. But once Peter looks back, they both smile. They seem to get along after the event at Oscorp Tower. Rings a bell, students leave the classroom. Harry catches Peter in the hallway, who's standing nearby with Gwen and talking to her. He tells Peter that they need to talk. Gwen, smiling, tells them that she will leave them and she will wait outside. Harry is silent for a few seconds and asks Peter how it's going. Peter tells him that everything is fine and Harry interrupts him by saying, great, that's great, man. Peter, you're the only guy I know here. Would you like to hang out a little bit, like just a brief chat between friends and I have some things to share. I think you're the right person to talk about it. Peter, my dad, Parker! Somebody screams in the background. Peter Parker! Do you think you can show up at the event just like that? Come here and take the invitation card. Peter goes, takes it, says thank you, and when he tires his bag, he finds out that Harry is gone. Peter looks upset. Next scene, it's evening already. Spidey is swinging across New York City. Peter keeps thinking about what Aunt May told him this morning. A brief next shot. Spidey is sitting at the top of the Empire State Building. Peter is also remembering his conversation with Curtis Connors about how he and Peter's dad worked together, and how he disappeared without saying anything. His eyesight falls into the Oscorp Tower, which is a few miles away. At this point, he decides to call Gwen. Next shot is Gwen's apartment. She's doing her homework. Peter asks her if there is any possibility to get in the Oscorp at this point. She says that there are no current intern programs and asks him why he needs to get there, mentioning that the last time they were there, it was a very sort of upset event. Her dad died, and Peter tells her that he was just curious and reminds her to wake up early tomorrow due to the event. Next few shots is just New York skyline. Next scene, it's night. You can see a lonely man standing in the balcony. He looks around, observes Manhattan skyline. It's Max Dillon, and he is certainly waiting for somebody. He holds a picture of Spider-Man in his hands. Hours pass, nobody comes. He looks upset and goes to bed. Now at this point you can see, guys, that Max is obviously a huge fan of Spider-Man. He now behaves very delusional, especially after the meeting with Spidey, and it seems that he thinks that Spider-Man is now his friend. And that is exactly what Jamie Foxx mentioned a few weeks ago. So, it's based on the reveals by Jamie Foxx himself. Next shot, you can see a crowd gathering nearby the Manhattan's outskirts. You can see a huge building with reactors and stuff. That's the power station. The event starts with a few of Oscorp's employees explaining how this is going to be a huge breakthrough in the world of science. They continue talking regarding this scientific topic, and Peter and Gwen are among the crowd, and Peter just noticed that among the researchers there's this guy standing right there, the guy he met back when he was pursuing somebody who's been spying on him on the balcony. Peter goes like, check this out, it's this guy. Who would have thought he works at Oscorp? An idea quickly comes to his mind. Once the first researcher group is replaced by some partners and other researchers and other talks, Peter runs to Max. Hi there, he says. Max, a bit confused and shy, says, hello, are you interested in... Peter interrupts him. I'm Spider-Man's personal photographer and a good friend. Max's eyes are open wide. "You know Spider-Man?" Peter smiles and says, "Yes, personally. He told me about you, how he feels sorry for smashing your balcony in pieces." Max looks even more surprised and he is definitely trying to smile. "Listen, he wants to meet with you and apologize personally. Today." Max is very excited and asks where and when. Peter is silent for a second. You can see that he didn't expect such a quick counter question. Here. Yes, here. He will be here at 11 p.m. You have to be here at 11 p.m. if you want to meet him. He also mentions that he will remind Spidey about the meeting today a few times, since Spidey tends to forget things. Only if Max will give him his Oscorp's worker pass card in order to get to the Oscorp Tower. Peter explains that he and his girlfriend need to write a coursework about the Oscorp, and the best source would be if they both could visit the Oscorp Tower for a short time. With some hesitation, yet still excited, Max gives him the pass card. You can see a person watching both of them. This person looks straight from the window. He sees that Peter bows a hand and goes away, leaving excited Max behind. Camera zooms in to the mysterious guy's face, to his mouth, and you can see him smiling. Next scene, well, it's actually a scene in a scene. You know, both scenes are running at the same time. Peter prepares for his night visit at Oscorp. Max prepares for his meeting with Spider-Man. Peter puts on Spidey's suit. Max puts on his cheap-looking suit and glasses on. Next scene, Spidey is swinging to Oscorp, taking care of a few thugs who robbed a woman on his way. You know, just some brief action scene. Next shot, Max Dillon standing at the power station in his suit. Nobody comes. He goes to his office, sits on the chair, and looks through the window very upset. A door opens. A person in a wheelchair comes in. Now, guys, this is supposed to look very scary and creepy, you know, since you can't see this person's face at all, just like the post-credits scene with the Man of the Shadows in the Amazing Spider-Man 1 in the prison. A person silently stares at Max. Max comes closer. Sir, are you okay?" Once he reaches even closer, he grabs this guy's hand gently and boom, he falls unconscious. A massive electrical charge throws him back. Screen goes black. Next shot, Peter is going through hundreds of files at Oscorp. He managed to get through without being noticed, and he finds Richard Parker's folder. Next shot, same night. Max Dillon wakes up in the middle of the huge hall. He quickly understands that it's the top floor of the Oscorp's power station. He stands up, but something is wrong. Something feels different. He notices that he is in some kind of costume. It looks very sci-fi and unreal. Some wires are going through his arms and through his body. A person in a wheelchair says, "Hello, Max." Max turns his back. He's scared and surprised. He puts his arm towards this person immediately, you know, some sort of natural protection, a protective reaction. And to his surprise, he throws a lightning bolt across the hall. He looks to one of his hands and notices that wires are glowing blue. He feels different. He feels stronger. "That was close," says the person in a wheelchair. "You have to be more careful, my dear friend." Max asks what happened and what's going on. A person tells him, "Isn't that what you always wanted, Max? I know that you feel very upset, you feel very bad, and I know your sins, Max. You were always an underestimated, a brilliant researcher. You made more for the Oscorp than anybody else. We both know that the launch of this station is due to your service and your researches." Now, you know, I'm speaking normal, but this guy is supposed to speak in a creepy voice, so just imagine that, guys. He tells Max that now he has the power he always wanted, and in order to prove himself to be even a brighter scientist, a true genius of his kind, He should organize a meeting with his new friend, Spider-Man, tomorrow, next night. While talking, they both walk at the top of the building. Max finds himself on the roof of the power station. A guy, unconscious, is attached to the chair in the middle of the room. A person on a wheelchair tells Max that it's Jacob, a guy who's been stealing his ideas for the past few years. Yeah, that's the guy who stole Max's idea in the part 1, by the way. He shows him the proof about that, and stuff, and he orders Max to do what he always dreamed about, to make justice. Max, very confused, yet after seeing all the evidence, he is obviously very mad at the same time. He, while still being mad and raging, grabs this guy's hand and the guy starts shaking, like a person going through a death sentence and who's on the electrical chair. When the guy is completely baked and dead, Max screams, feeling the massive adrenaline rush. He puts both of his hands up in the sky and calls a massive lightning bolt up to the sky. And that's the part 3. Hope you guys enjoy it. I know you guys have some questions, and trust me, everything will be answered in future parts. By the way, we are half through the movie. It's now the second half of the film, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that's where the action starts, obviously. And probably one of the questions will be how the hell Max turned into a bad guy, like sort of like immediately, after putting on the suit. And there's a reason for that. This will be explained. So guys, I hope this video can get 350 likes and I will release part 4. See ya. A few miles away in the Oscorp tower, Peter is suddenly distracted by a massive lightning bolt outside. What was that? Suddenly an alarm kicks in. You can hear security guards running on the first floor. An outsider in the building, I repeat, trespassing in the Oscorp tower. The security quickly enter the room and on the 20th floor, and they open the door and they see nobody there. Spidey is left. Next shot, Spidey is swinging away from the Oscorp tower and you can see a folder in his hands, a folder with the familiar mark. Next shot, Gwen's apartment. Knock knock. Gwen turns her back and sees Peter without his mask on the other side of the window. She smiles and opens the window, telling him that he should find another way to surprise her, since this one is getting old. They both smile and kiss. Peter puts his backpack on the floor and she asks Peter what is he carrying there in the middle of night. He responds by saying just some books, Both Peter and Gwen are distracted by lots of police sirens outside. Peter looks through the window and sees dozens of firefighters and police cars heading south. He turns his back and Gwen immediately responds, I got it. See you tomorrow, bug boy. Peter jumps through the window and swings among the police cars. To Peter's surprise, they arrive to Queens. One of the houses is burning and there's not much left. He noticed a young woman and apparently her mom standing outside. They are shocked and upset. Spidey, officer wants to meet with you, a policeman says to Spidey. When Peter meets with the officer, he asks Spidey to explain what is going on and what is that and what does Spidey has to do with it. Peter, confused, looks on the ground near the house entrance and sees letters that are burning on the grass. It's a message. It's important to keep your promise. Tomorrow, 11 p.m., Oscorp's power station. Be there. He looks shocked and confused and immediately swings away, with the officer shouting to him, Hey, where the hell you think you're going? Next scene, Spidey arrives at Oscorp's. It took him a few minutes. He sees nobody there, just a few security guards walking around. He tries to understand what is going on and comes to a conclusion that there's somebody who wants to play with him, and the fact that the house got burned all all over in Queens, 5 minutes away from his own house, is definitely not a coincidence. Next scene, same night. You can see a prison cell and Curtis Connors having a nap on the bed. A lightning bolt strikes nearby and a man on a wheelchair appears next to him. "What do you want?" asks distracted Connors. "Doctor, we need you," says a person on a wheelchair. You can see him sitting on a wheelchair a few meters away from Curtis in the dark, and a second figure in the dark appears next to him. Both are smiling. Curtis looks shocked. Next scene, it's morning. Peter in his room, and to his surprise he found out that somebody already took all the content in the folder of Richard Parker. He simply took an empty folder and he didn't even notice that. Knock knock, Aunt May tells Peter to calm down. Peter goes down. She tells him that there's a guest coming in a few minutes. She explains to him that a good friend of her asked them to take care of their daughter for a while until they found a new place to live. It's the family that were victims of the fire last night. Peter explains to Aunt May that he has to study, he doesn't think it's a great idea, and the doorbell rings. Aunt May smiles and tells Peter to open it. He goes slowly with a boring face expression. He opens a door and sees a stunning young lady with a suitcase, few bags, standing outside.
Face a tiger, you just hit the jackpot.
Next scene, evening, same day. You can see a New York skyline and the Oscorp's power station. A person in the shadow stands near the huge display with a creepy voice. He says, "Everything is ready." Next shot, next scene, Spidey is swinging across a few buildings. It's the same evening, and his final destination is the rooftop of the power station. Alright, what is it all about? I love surprises, but try to make it fast. A light in the middle turns in. You can see Curtis, who is now tied to the chair. "Dr. Connors!" Surprised, Peter screams instantly. He jumps straight to him and gets knocked out by the massive electrical charge. The blast was so huge that Spidey is now thrown away a few meters away. Barely conscious and blinded, Peter hears footsteps. Somebody is getting closer. "Oops, my bad," says the guy. Peter turns his head and sees Max Dillon. But he looks different. "You?" says confused Peter. Electro tells him that he thought they made a deal and he thought that Spidey knows how to keep a promise. He explains to blinded and injured Peter that his whole life people were disappointing him and nobody could keep their promise. In a half of a second, with his perfect speed, Spidey grabs Electro's leg and tries to throw him to the side. Peter is screaming. He feels massive pain. A massive electrical charge is going through his body. He can't move. He can't think. Scars start to appear on his body, on his face. Blood goes through his nose. His costume begins to tear up, and you can see half of his face through it already. "Enough!" says somebody in a creepy voice. This person, who apparently is on a wheelchair, comes closer. He tells Max that he should take a blood sample, Spidey's blood. Max does it. A person in the shadow tells Peter that he feels sorry for him and that he looks similar to his father. Peter is shocked. This guy knows his father. Next shot, both of the guys leave. Peter can barely move. He comes closer to Curtis, who is injured as well. Are you alright, Doc?" Connors, in a very low voice, responds to Peter by saying that the whole building is about to explode. Peter turns his back and sees a lightning bolts flying all around the power generators. He grabs Connors and swings away. You can see a surveillance camera recording both of them flying from the rooftop. Next shot, the whole building collapses in a massive explosion. Manhattan turns dark. Electricity and the whole lights disappear. The whole city is in the darkness. We can see cars smashing on the roads. People are screaming. Next shot, both Peter and Curtis are on the rooftop of one of the buildings in the middle of Manhattan. Peter leaves Curtis and moves to the corner of the building. He says, "What is going on, Doug?" He is shocked. "I need to take you to the safe place." Next shot, both of them enter Peter's room through a window. They do it silently. You can hear a few laughters and somebody is laughing down there. Apparently, it's Mary Jane and Aunt May. Peter's TV is on. You can hear a news reporter. A special bulletin. He reports that the whole Manhattan is out of electricity. Apparently, the explosion of the power station caused that. She reports that a few people are now reported dead, as well as dozens of others are injured. The whole city is in mass panic. Next, she tells that Spider-Man has been spotted leaving the power station a few seconds before the explosion. Among him, it was Dr. Curtis Connors, who escaped a prison a few hours ago. Both Peter and Curtis are shocked. That's it, guys. Next part 5, is the ending. I hope you are enjoying the script so far and be ready to witness the ending to my story, probably tomorrow or day after. There's lots of action and some surprises, and I hope you guys will enjoy it. So yeah, guys, I will make one more video before the part 5 explaining a few things once again, some questions that were asked after part 3 and after my latest video. So yeah, guys, see you later. What's going on, guys? So I've been working on part 5 of my script for The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which was supposed to be 30 minutes long, and I didn't actually plan to upload it for the next few days, but you guys are writing asking me to upload the part, and due to such a huge demand, I've decided to split the last part into 2 parts. So this is not the ending, guys. There will be one more part in a few days, so enjoy it. Peter and Curtis are in the room. Peter explains to Connors that they need to hurry and that he asked if there are any safe places where Curtis can stay for a while. He explains that even though his house is still sealed by the police, there might be a way to get in. Peter grabs Curtis and they both head to Curtis' house. Next shot, while they swing in the darkness, you can see lots of people on the down streets running in panic. This part of Manhattan is going crazy. They reach the house and they enter through the roof's window. Curtis tells Peter that he's ready and willing to help him, though Peter explains that he can handle it. Right before Peter swings away, Connors grabs his hand and tells Peter that the man responsible for this disaster is Norman Osborn. Peter decides to stay for a while. Curtis explains that they both, Richard and him, were working for this person and that he still believes that the Osborn might have something to do with the disappearance of his father. Peter tells him to take care of himself and that he will be back. Next scene, Spidey jumps on the rooftop of one of the buildings. He sees lots of police cars down there. There are dozens of people stuck in the elevators. Next scenes are basically Spidey helping the citizens of New York City, everyone who is in trouble right now due to the blackout. We see him getting people out of the wrecked cars, and next shot, next scene, same night, we can see Max Dillon leaving the Oscorp tower among a few other researchers. There's press and news reporters around him. He explains to them that the man responsible for the disaster is obviously Spider-Man, who is apparently on his vengeance, who decided to revenge people of New York City for the hunt that was announced upon him a few months ago by Captain Stacy. He explains that Spider-Man was spotted leaving Oscorp station a few seconds before the explosion and that Curtis Connors, a fugitive whom Spidey helped to escape the prison, was along him. Next shot you can actually see Spidey watching this live broadcast on one of the rooftops just above the street, but he doesn't interrupt it. After explaining that Oscorp cares about the people of New York City and after some sacrifices for the greater good made by a company themselves, Oscorp is ready to stop the mass panic on the street and bring Manhattan to its normal state. He walks in the middle of the wrong road while there is a huge crowd gathering around him. He puts both of his hands down the road and you can see a huge lightning flash that blinded everyone on the street. The lights are up. The city is alive once again. After a few seconds of silence, people start to clap their hands and they, including the news reporters, are basically begging Max to explain who is he and what just happened. Max explains to them that he is one of the Oscorp's brightest researchers and that if needed, he is ready to sacrifice his life for the good of the people. Peter, observing, decides not to interrupt. He understands that it's not the best moment to stop this crazy maniac. Next scene, Peter's house. Gwen and her family, as well as Mary Jane and Aunt May, sit around the kitchen table. Peter enters the living room and everybody looks shocked. Peter is obviously injured and Gwen is the first one to run to him. She asks what happened, to what Peter, not in a good manner, responds with counter-question. What are you doing here? Aunt May interrupts them by saying that Gwen and her family came to Queens a few hours ago due to the accident that happened in New York City. Mary Jane tells everyone that she heard a news reporter saying that they finally caught this maniac who escaped the prison, Curtis Connors, who was chilling in his own apartment. Peter grabs his head. He whispers to himself, "What is wrong with me?" You see, he obviously forgot about Connors in this whole mess and what? Asks Gwen. Peter explains that he got himself into a bus accident due to the blackout, and Aunt May goes to kitchen to grab some medicine, and when she's back, she notices that Peter is no longer there. He went back to his room. Gwen, still shocked by such a response from Peter, still stands there in the middle of the living room. Gwen enters Peter's room and sees him putting off his damaged and teared up suit that is basically destroyed, that was under his clothes. Peter apologizes for his bad attitude and tells Gwen that she should keep a distance from him for now. It's dangerous to be together. She starts crying and begs Peter to explain what is going on. He tells her that it's complicated and that it involves his parents, obviously. Though he still hugs and kisses her. Next shot, it's Oscorp's tower. A few people are sitting around the oval table in a huge room with many displays. A person in a wheelchair is along the mysterious person in the shadows I mentioned before is along them, as well as Max Dillon. So, you are back in business, Mr. Osborn. Yes, replies the mysterious man. Well, it's Norman Osborn. That's the biggest big reveal, you know, and I think you guys found out about it in previous parts. It was quite obvious. I gave a few hints. He looks old, he looks exhausted, and apparently for more than 4 years now he isn't able to walk, so that's why he's on a wheelchair. And I mentioned 4 years because I've been discussing this Easter egg, Norman Osborn's Easter egg, we've seen while Peter was searching for his parents in The Amazing Spider-Man, where he was reading all the articles. You can actually see in the Bing search bar a few articles that the last time Norman Osborn was seen was actually 4 years ago. So it's an Easter egg, and that's where the 4 years come from. In the continuation of this scene, you can see Norman explaining that he will continue his research since now he has all he needed before. On the displays around them, you can see lots of spider species and DNA of apparently human blood. It's Peter's blood sample being in the works for this mysterious research currently. Somebody is trying to enter the room, and it's Harry Osborn. Electro interrupts Norman by saying that his son is willing to see him. Norman tells Electro to get rid of him for now and tells him just to wait, basically. After a few silent seconds, Max interrupts Norman once again by saying that if he's really sure he doesn't want to see his son right now. Norman stares at Max for a few seconds. With his dark, gritty eyes, he tells Max that he quickly made him a name, he made him powerful, and as quickly he can throw him back to being nobody. Max isn't really satisfied by such answer, but he stays quiet. And next scene, it's the next day. It's basically Peter in his room, who just opened a briefcase. You can see a second pair of his new web shooters there. Also on his table you can see a huge opened book which is labeled Magnets and Electricity Study Guide. Now at this point you can see him carrying his new costume, which looks different but is obviously unfinished. Gwen enters the room asking about this costume she sees for the first time. He explains that it's something he's been working on for a while now. Next shot, Peter, you can see Gwen and her family heading to their car. Peter is carrying some things as well. They're moving back to their house. Gwen tells Mom that she needs just a few seconds to talk with Peter. She tells him that she hopes he will explain everything to her and that she is strong enough to wait. She also mentions that during whole night that new friend of his, Mary Jane Watson, kept asking questions about Peter and that she obviously likes him. Peter smiles. Later he looks down. He tells her that apparently now he realized what her father meant to say before his death. Due to all the danger that surrounds him, they need to keep the distance, especially now. She starts crying once again and tells him once again that she is ready to wait if needed. They leave. While entering the living room, he hears on the TV that an arrest warrant for Spider-Man being announced right now once again. It's Daily Bugle's news channel, and JJ himself reports that Spider-Man is obviously involved in the disaster. Next scene, Peter is in his room on his computer and is busy going through all the articles on Norman Osborn. He found out that the last time Norman was seen in public was 4 years ago. Apparently Norman had a few unsuccessful trials at Oscorp, being the head of the Oscorp. He did the trials while, with the crossing animal species, and that Oscorp still up to date is very private about these trials. They did not announce much. After his latest trial, the number 7, the 7th one, which happened 4 years ago, Norman Osborn disappeared and nobody has seen him since then. Obviously Peter realizes that the big brain Osborn probably done the trials on himself and they failed. Something happened to him back then, something that made him disappear and hide from the public. Peter looks on his wrist and observes a wound that Electro left on him after getting the blood sample. Now, you see, what Peter understood at this point is that he was framed for something he didn't do. The person to blame for the kidnap of Curtis and the explosion is most likely Norman Osborn. Also, Norman Osborn needed his blood sample, and he was using Richard Sparky's researches during his previous trials. So I guess you can see the picture, guys. Peter also finds out that information about Dillon on the web, who for all these years while working for Oscorp was considered to be actually a disaster, a failure researcher. He came across an article where it says that at some point the Oscorp's employee Max Dillon accidentally burned his house while testing some of his devices. Next scene, next day, it's morning. You can see the entrance to the Oscorp Tower, and there are even more news reporters this time. They're explaining the events that happened here 2 days ago. "He's here!" somebody shouted. One of the news reporters just noticed that Spider-Man is obviously flying towards them. Spider-Man in a new costume with a belt, and obviously he looks very different now. He grabs this reporter's microphone and lands himself on a car. He says hello to everyone and explains that he is ready to willingly surrender to the police, only for a small offer. He explains that he wants to meet with the Oscorp's employee that had a late night show here yesterday. You can hear a police sirens. There's a massive crowd gathering around him.